But let us begin the meeting. Today's September 8th. As we normally do, we'd like to begin the meeting with the prayer. Could we all please rise? Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Could we all please salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Mayor Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Martin.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
It's 9 present.
9 present. Before we begin the regularly scheduled agenda, the Chair would like to recognize Councilor Mercier. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber to Joanne O'Brien, widow of George O'Brien and resident of the Christian Hill section of the city. Joanne was born in Lowell, attended Lowell schools, and graduated from Lowell High School. Joanne was employed by the city as a paraprofessional for many years. Joanne worked at the Robinson, Pine, and Lowell High School, then moved to the Election Commission, where she worked as an election clerk for many, many years, including part-time after her retirement. Joanne was a communicant of St. Michael's Parish, where she also served as a member of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. She was a member of the Red Hat Society and an avid Red Sox fan and extremely devoted to her family. She is survived by her 3 children, Karen, James, and Kevin, her 8 grandchildren, her brother, Bernard Cassidy, and her 2 sisters, Mary Demers and Gail Sennick, who also was a city election official. She was a remarkable woman, very conscientious as a city employee, and a great person to have as a friend. We offer our sympathy to her family, relatives, and many friends. She will be truly missed. We also offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for all members of our community who passed away since our last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comment? Could we all please rise? And could we talk in the chambers for a moment of silence? May they rest in peace. Moving on to the regularly scheduled agenda, we have under the city clerk portion, we have minutes from the city council meeting of August 25th. We also have minutes from the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee, also on the 25th. Comments? Edits? Motion to accept the minutes and place on file by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. Motion carries. The minutes are accepted, adopted, and placed on file. Next section of the agenda are general public hearings that have been advertised for 7 p.m. So until 7 p.m. we'll proceed with the agenda. We have communications. We have motion responses from the city manager. We'll begin with the first motion response. That is the motion response A, the 2015 paving schedule update. Comments? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. What I was curious on is, so we got this year we got that RAP money, $279,000, almost $300,000. So I was wondering, and we made the most of that money. We got a lot of sections of road done. I'm wondering why we don't maybe we could make that a practice every year, because some roads don't need to be paved the whole way, or, you know, we just need to do half the street or a whole section, but only 60 feet long. So maybe we could try to look at this and use it as an example and try to do that on our own every year and make the most of it, because when I put the motion in for Varnum Ave, I forget the street number up to Topman Road, that could have been a good example. We could have just done half the street, you know, got rid of that trench, and the other half was good. So that would be a suggestion with that. And I was just hoping next year we could take a look at that index number that we use, the PCI index number, and if we could get a little bit more information on that, because, you know, to be honest, there's some roads, of course I had them all, I can't think of them right now, but there's some streets in the city that aren't really used as much as others, but they're in deplorable shape. So, and they're short streets. There's one up off, it goes from Chelmsford Street over to Plain Street, Briarwood or something like that, I can't think of it. But it's in horrible shape. And, you know, and I know you know, but, you know, these people deserve a nice street too, versus someone who lives on a main road that we're trying to get the main roads done. That seems to be a main factor in this index number. So, you know, we should almost like institute a cup of coffee rule. So if you can't hold a burning cup of coffee in your lap while you're driving down the street and it's spilling all over the place, you know, that would be a good indication that we need to pave the road. And there's a handful of streets in the city that we could do that on. We had asked information, the council had asked information in the previous years and maybe this year too about like Humphrey Street, and I didn't notice that on the list. So I was hoping that street could get re-looked at. That's another one of those streets that just has all the dugouts, sinkholes, and things like that. So that's why I'm not so sure about this index number. And it does say that next year we're up for another maybe 3-year review. Every 2 to 3 years, they do the PCI number. So maybe we could take a look at the qualifications for the PCI number and try to get some of these bad streets out of the way. They may not be in clusters. We may not be able to do 4 or 5 streets in one section, but there are certain streets that do need to be paved. And there's a handful, you know, in every neighborhood. So I appreciate the report. We're moving forward on the streets in Lowell Belvedere, and I think it's Belrose Ave. But I just thought maybe if we looked at that, what we did with the RAP money this year, maybe we could do that, institute that, and we could get a lot of small sections that are just a nuisance to people in their neighborhood. You know, you come home, the whole road, and we all get these phone calls. The whole road may not be that bad, but there's certain sections that are bad. So if we could take care of the certain sections, we'd stop getting the phone calls, and obviously it makes quality of life better for people in the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Any other comments on the paving schedule? Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I thought the report was informative and well done. But we do still get calls from people, and, you know, there's 200-plus miles of road, so it could be quite a few years before you get to them all. Is that document able to be public, you know, on the website or something like that, so people have some sort of sense where they fall? I mean, I've gotten calls from people, I have no idea, how do I get my street repaved? I don't know to tell them to wait 1 year, 2 years, 10 years.
The document right now is not on the city's website, but I can put it on. I think I might ask it to wait until I have the updated one, and then the next version I will put on there. And then as far as someone's street moving up on the list will depend on how much funding we get in each subsequent year. So it's hard to say how many years till we get to your street, because we don't know how much funding we're going to get 2 years out, or 3 years out, or 4 years out.
So, but that would be at least a help relative to where you stand.
Yep.
So, thank you. All right.
Could I just ask a question to the engineer?
Council Leahy?
So when you say funding we get, you're mostly speaking Chapter 90 money, though?
That's usually the first thing we think of. If we
A
get,
lot of streets I'm thinking of that just need to be milled and repaved, and I know sometimes that it's not as simple of a task, but we should be setting aside a certain amount every year. And if we could do, like we did with this wrap or whatever, but we should be able to predict that every year we have $1 million or $2 million to do our roads that just need to be milled and paved, right? So,
well, the last few years, we have gotten some capital money, and it has been in the range of $1 million. The thing that we have to look at before we just come in and mill and pave is, does the water, wastewater, and gas need to do
Right.
any repairs? So that's usually the long lead item before we can put a street on the list. We have to see how many repairs do the other utility, because I don't want, even if it's just a small area, I really don't want to waste taxpayers' money by paving it and then have it be torn up because water needs to go in and do a repair.
right, big repairs like that. It just, when I got on before the new administration took over, I thought the goal was that we were putting money aside, we were building up our reserves, so that now we'd have more money to borrow to get a real jump on the roads. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for. So that's why I keep bringing this up, but, and I understand that, we're starting to get a handle on that now, but that's kind of what I was waiting for. I thought we were going to have a big jump start on not so much the Chapter 90 money where we're doing sidewalks and curbing, but there's a lot of streets that just need to be milled. And like you said, if it's not set to do sewer work, then I just thought we'd see a big number of these smaller streets coming up, and we'd be wiping them out. So that's what I was looking for.
I know you,
Mr. Manager?
Oh, that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, beyond the RAP money, we got 1.8 in Chapter 90 that we're expending on streets. And in the capital plan that the city council approved, it's an additional 1.35 million for the past 2 years. So we are expending considerable money as we can afford to
Sure.
pave the streets. So there has been a significant effort by this council to pave the streets,
Yeah.
especially this year.
And like the report says, next year, we're gonna review the peak CI number, right? And maybe we can get a few more streets that are in need on, even though they might be scattered around the city, but they should be able to jump ahead, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. This is a very good comprehensive report. My question has to do with the number of paving contractors that the city actually uses. And I know it's subject to, I believe, the low bid. But if you look at Varnum Avenue and how I think we all felt the work out there was not what we all expected. And then you look at the corner of Douglas Road and Andover Street where we did the strip from almost to Glenwood or Frothingham. And that came out great. I guess my question is, if we have a contractor that has not done good work for us, can we exclude them from bidding on public works jobs?
Absolutely. Mr. Manager?
with proper documentation, yes.
Well, the work on Varnum Avenue, I mean, I would hope that that is properly documented because there was, some very serious issues out on Varnum Avenue.
On the, in the Varnum Ave, they went out and they rectified the problem, but we also had that problem with Industrial Ave.
Okay.
Is that the contractor did I know because I drive it quite often, is that they did a terrible job. So we didn't pay them. And they had to come out this year and they repaved it, correct? And it's a very good job that they performed.
You're correct, but I think you're talking about something different. Counselor, are you talking about the section of Varnum around Topman Road?
Yes, correct,
Okay,
yeah.
that was from the water project about 8 or 9 years ago. And unfortunately with that, the way the contract was written, it was only a thin overlay. So he did what the contract called for. So in that case, it was that the project was bid with poor specs.
No, Mr. Mayor, he's talking about the first time that they paved Varnum Ave from from Old Ferry Road
Ferry to the
the
town line,
Tinkerbell
but
line.
you said Topman Road.
Correct, but
Yeah.
again, it was all part of the, what I remember getting calls on, so
Right.
probably more closer to the old Ferry Road.
The Topman Road
but-
area was different than,
Okay.
Right.
and from Old Ferry to the town line was what you two were referring to, but I thought he was talking about the other work.
Okay. Okay. And
That
one
same contractor was required to come back
Okay,
this spring and repay, and did at no cost to the city because we didn't pay them to remill and repave, right, Counselor?
right, correct.
And and so there are standards that we send into the state, correct? If they're coming
Yes,
off a state bid list, that they did not perform well.
Correct.
And that is the criteria that we use. So even if they are low bid, we don't accept them because they don't do good work.
Correct.
Just one quick follow-up. What about the frost eaves on Douglas Road in front of the Riley School? For some reason, I don't know, again, if it's the piping underneath Douglas Road, but it's pretty serious. And I know it's obviously September, but it's
It's
something
the
that's
first I'm
been
hearing of that one, so I will check
getting,
about.
seems to be getting worse over the last few weeks, right in front of the Riley School. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion on this motion response A, paving schedule, Counsel Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city engineer. Could we get back just for a moment to Councilor Milanazzo's original question about whether or not we can get, when he asked whether or not we could get rid of a contractor that was not doing a good job, you said with proper documentation. Do we do proper documentation on every street that's done? I mean, do we document that a contractor, for instance, has done a good job, and do we document if they've done a bad job? I mean, is there someone that does that kind of quality assessment after the work is done?
At the end of every contract, there is a Mass DOT form that we've taken on and we use ourselves, and we fill it all out. Were you happy with this? Were you happy with that? Did the contractor do as he was told? Did he do as the spec said? How many times did you have to? So we fill that out, we keep that on file with all of that. If it turns out that we were not happy with them, we turn that into the state, so the state knows that we were unhappy with them, so they can spread the word around as well. But we would use that as part of the documentation, as well as any emails that we would have between the law department and the purchasing agent. We keep all of that, and that becomes part of the package we use, so that if that contractor became low bidder in a subsequent contract, we wouldn't choose him based on all of these reasons.
Okay, so proper documentation, is the report that you sent in to the Commonwealth, is that in itself enough documentation to not use a contractor the next year?
I think that one piece of, I'm going to ask the city solicitor, that one piece of paper by itself may not be sufficient, but it is a piece of all of the documents. Is that one piece of paper enough to disqualify a candidate?
Madam Solicitor?
This was something that actually we recently, as a group of administrators in the city, have had this discussion recently at one of the city manager's leadership meetings about putting the proper documentation together. I will say that prior to this, one of the few departments that had religiously been doing it was, in fact, the city engineers. So when there is a problem, that documentation goes off to the purchasing department, and that would hopefully put us in a position that if we were dealing with a low bidder, there would be enough documentation, and that would suffice to then to move to the next bidder.
To not use that, okay.
Correct.
And how many contractors do we use during the course of a year to do streets? How many, it's more than one, right? So it's,
Within the streets themselves, the last few years, I'd say 3, my office would be managing 3, maybe 4 contracts a year.
3 different contractors,
Yes.
3 or 4 different contractors every year. And do they tend to be the same ones every year?
It's a similar group that does the bidding. It's not always the same winner.
Okay, but it's the same pool of people
Yes.
that do it,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, thanks.
Further discussion on motion response A, 2015 paving schedule.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Mercia?
if the body will oblige, I'd like to suspend the rules and get out of the, I want to say divest out of the communications from the city manager and make a motion that we go into 8.4, suspend the rules to take an item out of order. Number of people here that want to speak on a particular item, 8.4, if we could do that. It's a motion by Councilor Samaras and myself regarding fossil fuel.
A motion to suspend the rules to take an item out of order from the agenda by Council Mercia, second by Council Milonazo. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. We'll jump to 8.4. It's a motion by Council Samaras and Council Mercia. Request City Council go on record to vote in favor of a resolution in support of divestment of fossil fuels. No second necessary. Who's going first?
Would like to let the public speak.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, registered speakers?
Marissa Shea, sorry.
Marissa Shea? Could we just get your name and address for the record?
Sure. Marissa Shea, 63, Mount Washington. So, in early August, I went to visit my grandmother in Puerto Rico. And when I got there, the tap water was only turned on every other day. And pretty soon after, the tap water was only on every third day. So off for 2 days and then on the third day. And by the time that I left, the tap water was only on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So for 5 days out of the week, there was just no water at all. And the thing about Puerto Rico is there's a rainforest in the middle of it. So the key word being rain. It's a very wet, humid environment. And right now, they're running out of water. And my grandmother said she's never seen anything like this in 87 years. So as unpopular as it is to say, we are at a point where, unfortunately, climate change is no longer something that may or may not happen at some future time. It's already affecting people all over the world, and it's affecting people in Lowell too. I mean, we were all here last winter when we had the freakish amount of snow, and a large amount of snow is not at odds with climate change. It's actually completely consistent with what scientists predict will happen in the Northeast, which is that we'll have shorter winters, and when we do have snow, we're going to have more snow. So given that schools closing is a local issue, given that local businesses not being able to open, given it's the city's budget, we have to spend more money on snow removal, in a very real way, this is a local issue because it's going to affect so many aspects of our, the way that we deal with the city and the way that you manage the city. So I think it's appropriate to bring this divestment resolution to you tonight. That's one of the reasons I think it's appropriate. And so what is this divestment resolution? Essentially, in its most bare form, we're saying we don't agree with this. We need to take money out of certain companies and put the money somewhere else. And why are we using this? This is just one of many strategies that's being used right now. And it's a strategy that's being used because it has a history of success, probably most notably in the 1980s when the United States divested from South Africa. So we pulled money out of South African companies, and Nelson Mandela actually credited the divestment campaign in the United States as being an important part of ending apartheid. And Massachusetts was the first state to divest. In the 1990s, the campaign to shun the tobacco industries. Of the 7 states that pulled money out of the tobacco industries, Massachusetts was one of them. So not only is this successful, this is part of our history in Massachusetts. So aside from reducing risk for our pensioners, which I'm not going to speak too much about the economics of it, others will, so you'll hear that. I think there are other, less obvious but still really important benefits to passing this divestment resolution for Lowell, because passing this resolution says strong, loud, that Lowell is a community that gets it. We are, cognizant of future trends, and we have some understanding of where the future is going. And these are the kinds of communities that people want to invest in, 1, and 2, people want to live in. And really, it's just a natural extension of so many of the other initiatives that Lowell has already taken, like setting up the Green Building Commission, passing the policy of complete streets, which happened this summer, and supporting local urban agriculture. So this is just yet another way for us to distinguish ourselves as a up-and-coming, vibrant community in the Merrimack Valley that's heading in the right direction. So just to close, I'd like to say that, You know, I think that none of us can do everything, but I think we're at a point where whatever we can do, we probably should be doing, because this is something that's going to affect all of us for generations. And, you know, the 9 of you are in this incredibly privileged position where after 10 minutes of talking, you can do more than we have been able to do, some of us, for years. So I leave it to you, and I thank you very much for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Next speaker, Mr. Clerk.
Peter Lovett.
Good evening. I think I was supposed to be fourth, but we're all friends. My name is Peter Lovett. I'm a resident of Lowell. I'm also the pastor at Christ Church United, United Church of Christ, the largest Protestant denomination in Massachusetts. Shortly after our forebears in the faith landed on the shores of what would be known as Plymouth Colony, a leader emerged charged with forging a new path that would demand much sacrifice, even as it would promise great reward. In speaking to his shipmates as they undertook what many considered to be an impossible and foolish task, all of you remember John Winthrop's words, "We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." So 20 months ago, my mentor, our UCC bishop, quoted these words at a national gathering of the United Church of Christ. And after deliberation and prayer, the UCC became the first national body and the first religious denomination to vote to divest from fossil fuel companies. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, interesting enough, Marissa, emailed his congregations, this leader, within an hour, adding, "We hope others will follow your splendid example." And we can see today that our dear friend Pope Francis has followed the example and has spoken out very proudly and accurately about this issue of climate change. So we're back again here tonight to convince the elected leaders of this great city of Lowell to set a splendid example for others to follow and to declare it immoral to allow fossil fuel companies to carry out their business plan, because if they do, they will wreck the earth. Superstorms, disruptive weather patterns, now year-round, rising sea levels are a distressing fact, record heat as well as record cold a reality. An ecological disaster cannot be the legacy we leave our children, let alone the rest of the world. And the consequences of such short-sightedness will make today's refugee crisis seem like a cakewalk. Some of you may be a bit nervous about being early to this commitment, but let's not forget that being early on issues of justice has helped to make Massachusetts the leader we are. It was a Massachusetts Congregationalist minister, Samuel Sewall, who published the first anti-slavery tract in America in 1701. Yes, he was early, but he wasn't too early. The eyes of all people are upon us, and I urge you, the leaders of this city, to be leaders of a green city on a hill, offering hope and possibly opening this economy, including all of the resources at UMass Lowell, to creating a plethora of green jobs. Let us all join with the will of the people. And the facts count us out on, the facts are true. It's the will of the people in this nation, and I'm sure this state, the will of the people to forge a new and sustainable path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Mr. Clerk.
Jay Mason.
Thank you, Pastor Levitt. Marissa Shea. Thank you, city councilors, city manager. It's an honor to be here. My name is Jay Mason. I reside at 77 Tyler Park. I'm the chair of the Lowell Green Building Commission. Thank you for mentioning that body. That is one of a very few civic bodies across the state that are dedicated and held to a mission of embracing and educating about things like climate change, sustainability, and accountability at a city level, an opportunity that we now share. And I just wanted to briefly speak as a chair of that body and as a public citizen and offer my sincere and wholehearted endorsement of this idea. I do not find this at all to be anything but a small step forward in a very worthwhile cause. I believe the science. I believe the signs that I see and feel as a resident here. And I believe what I read in terms of the climate change that's going on around us. I would like to see us take a small step. We are one community in a commonwealth of about, 351 cities and towns? And I believe that each vote stands on its own. We each have an opportunity to make that one vote, and that opportunity is tonight. I would like to see us make that vote in favor of this important resolution and stand with the other 13 communities that have already done so and move forward with a progressive and a very important step forward for the city of Lowell. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Clerk?
Derek Paulette.
So I'm going to give a presentation, but is that going to be able to be put on that television as well so people upstairs can see it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Connor, does that go?
Also, if I just click, will it change the slide?
Correct.
It'll do it that way? All right, cool. I'm sorry to everybody in advance that I thought it was going to be on a bigger screen for some reason, so if it's a little small, you can't see things, I'm sorry. Oh, that's a good idea. So I want to thank Councilwoman Mercier and Councilman Samaras for bringing this back up for a vote tonight. Thank you for everything you've done in support of this, and thank you, entire City Council, for talking with us over the last couple of months about this. Your comments and criticism really made sure we knew what we were talking about, so I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight. This is amazing. This is way more than we had last time, so your support and your encouragement really keep me going. I cannot thank you all enough. So I'm a teacher at Lowell High School, and I've learned that audience participation is probably the best way to get a point across. So if I say something that you like or agree with or you never thought of before, just give a couple of snaps. We do that in poetry circles. It lets me know that I'm doing something right and make sure that we're all on the same page. So don't be afraid to make noise, a little noise. So we're talking about divestment tonight, but some people at home may have never heard that before, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So in its simplest form, divestment is the opposite of investment. You take money out of something. But we're talking about fossil fuel divestment, which is the removal of investment assets from companies involved in extracting fossil fuels. And what we're asking Lowell to do is support the statewide divestment of our state pension fund that our public employees pay into. And so with that in mind, I want to talk about what divestment is not rather than what it is, because there's a lot of misconceptions that we hear, and I want to address those tonight so that we're all comfortable with this. The first common one that we hear is that divestment from fossil fuels will result in the end of modern civilization. They say that activists are asking us to go back to living in caves, cooking by fire, and tracking animals on feet. And actually, to sum up this sentiment, I found a really good comic online. It's called Life Without Fossil Fuels. You can't see what it says, but there's a hairdresser talking to her client who has a paper bag over her face. And she says, in light of the circumstances, this is the best that we can do. And there's a fossil fuel fact. It says products like lipstick, makeup, nail polish, and lotion are all derived from fossil fuels in one way or another. So the idea is if we divest, we give up our modern way of life. And nothing could be further from the truth. We understand it takes time to transition from fossil fuels to renewables. But what divestment does ask us to do is open up a political space so that our politicians feel comfortable addressing climate change. And it says to our politicians, dear elected leaders, we, the voters, want you to take action to address climate change. We're not going to vote you out of office. And actually, you're probably going to get a bump in the polls because we really want this to happen. So divestment is kind of political cover for them to take further action. Oh, there we go. A second criticism that we hear is divestment means investors will lose money. After all, energy's always been a great investment. Why wouldn't you park your money in fossil fuels? Everyone needs them, so invest in things people need. However, the past, I don't think, is an indicator of the future. This doesn't take into account two things. How volatile oil prices have been recently and where energy production is going in the future. So for example of both, last month, California reported losing $5 billion in their state pension fund because of falling fossil fuel prices. And this is the largest state pension fund in the country. If they had divested sooner, they would have actually saved money. And the argument also didn't take into account where energy production is going. So this is a graph of renewable energy production globally, and there's a clear trend upward. I don't know if you can see it, I'm sorry. But if this continues, and it'll have to in order to address climate change, we can expect further instability of fossil fuel prices, and losses like California reported may become commonplace. So if we divest, we're getting rid of this kind of a risk. Like a room full of crickets. Another criticism that we hear is that we all use fossil fuels every day, so divestment's hypocritical. The argument goes something like, if you're going to talk the talk, then walk the walk. Don't heat your homes, don't drive your cars, don't wear your clothes, don't brush your teeth, and then come tell us how bad fossil fuels are. However, I think that this is, oh, it's not clicking. You can do it. No, you can't. There we go. I think this is a misdirection of the argument. Again, it assumes that we're asking for fossil fuels to be given up overnight. And we know that's not realistic. But what divestment does ask us to do is to minimize the risks that our pension funds are exposed to. We're really asking for our pension funds to be stronger, more robust, more resilient, so that our pensioners don't have to worry about whether or not they can retire every time fossil fuels drop, or gas prices fall. And actually, I would say that it's hypocritical to want to reduce your carbon footprint while at the same time remaining invested in the thing that you're trying to get rid of. Those two ideas, I don't think, can coexist. One of the last criticisms that we hear, certainly not the last one, but the one I'm going to talk about, is that divestment's not meaningful action. It's gesture politics. It's symbolic. It's not going to do anything. After all, if we pass this tonight, the atmosphere is not going to get cleaned up. No company is going out of business overnight. And these are true. But that's never been a claim of what divestment would do. And to reiterate, the goals of divestment are to reduce the risks that our pensioners are exposed to so they have the confidence that they can retire long down the road when they need to. It also gives our politicians political oversight and says, go ahead, do what you need to address climate change. We're on your side. We're so invested in this that we're divested from fossil fuels. And lastly, but I think most importantly, it puts a strong public spotlight on a very destructive industry, and it asks the question, should we be profiting off the destruction of the earth? And I would say, no, we should not. So again, I want to thank all the city councilors and everyone who came out tonight. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done to fight climate change and that we can do here in Lowell. And so I hope that we get to work together in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Well done. Mr. Clerk?
One more speaker. John Grossman.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is John Grossman. I live at 83 Varnum Avenue. I work for the Service Employees International Union, Local 509, the Massachusetts Union for Human Service Workers and Educators. We represent about 17,000 workers in Massachusetts, including approximately 600 who live here in Lowell. Our members are social workers in state agencies, such as the Department of Children and Families and others, family child care providers, staff who provide support for people with developmental disabilities or mental illness, among other occupations. We were the first union to support the bill calling upon Massachusetts to divest its pension funds from fossil fuel. Many of our members are members of the state retirement system, as I am myself. I previously did work for the state. We support this bill because we realize that the risks to our taxpayers and our retirees due to unabated climate change are greater than any risk of financial loss due to divestment from fossil fuel. Climate change is going to bring increased costs to working people and to taxpayers. As the earth and the oceans warm, ecosystems change, there will be new public health risks, crops won't grow where they used to grow, food prices will rise, sea levels rise, severe droughts and more powerful storms are all going to mean significant increased spending on infrastructure. Addressing all these things will cost money, and we know who will end up paying for it. It will be the average working person, the average retiree, the average taxpayer. It will be people who live in Lowell and places like Lowell. Any gains now from short-term fossil fuel profits are not going to be worth the cost later. So let's do what we can to avoid them. That's why our union supports the divestment bill, and that's why we urge that this city council do the same and pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman.
Anybody else?
That concludes our registered speakers.
Thank you.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On December 9th of last year, I made a motion requesting the city review their portfolios in order to identify any investments, whether direct or indirect, that included holding in fossil fuel companies. At that time, we received a report, and it was learned that the Master Plan for Sustainable Lowell 2025 has yielded fossil fuel reduction initiatives and successes such as the adoption of the energy stretch code that requires new homes to be built more efficiently, which will result in a reduction of the usage in fossil fuel. But the second part of the motion was to support the divestment of fossil fuel and join 13 other communities through a resolution, but nothing was done. This evening, Councilor Samaras and I would like to bring this motion forward one more time and ask that this council go on record to vote in favor of a resolution in support of state divestment of fossil fuel. Climate change and the erratic weather and devastation that results require that we stop heating up the planet. Future generations will ask what we did to combat this crisis. What is the answer going to be? Not too much. As stated earlier, that the city is doing all it can to reduce fossil fuel, then there should be no problem with supporting our request, as other communities have done, Boston being one of them. This city has done so much to be a leader with environmental issues. Why fall back now when other towns and cities across Massachusetts are stepping up to the plate? As a previous speaker said just a few moments ago, Massachusetts was the first state in the nation to divest all state pension funds from tobacco companies in 1997. I would ask for support of this issue. It is of critical importance that we vote and support this resolution of Senate Bill S-1225, currently in the Public Service Committee. And I say it is not nice to fool Mother Nature. Thank you very much.
Council Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Councilor Mercia is a hard act to follow. I just like to bring up a couple of points. First point is when Councilor Mercia made this motion, took in this good motion, many of us were concerned regarding divestment. What did it mean to the pension funds, things like that. City Manager Murphy brought in information talking about actually how little control we as a city have over it, but that's a state issue. And this resolution is, as an example, is supporting Senate Bill 1225. And these are important. The issue is, I think the people that have come before us tonight to speak have talked plain. They've talked about divestment. What does it mean? It does not mean destroying our pension funds. These are a thing that we're concerned with. We're concerned with where we are today, but as a parent, as a grandparent, I'm concerned about my children, I'm concerned about my grandchildren. And the issues that they address are real, and we must talk about them, and we must deal with them. We need to protect our future. So, you know, and there's a question sometimes as a city council, is this something a city council should do? But we've had many votes like this in which we've supported a Senate or a State House bill regarding various issues. And I think this resolution goes on to do that. So I think what we're doing is we're looking to understand a situation that is very hard to understand, but the weather has changed. There are a lot of issues out there. I'm not a scientist, but I know that fossil fuels will not last forever. That's simple math. So what should we do as a city council? I think we should go on record to support a group of individuals who come before us to say, you know what, things have to change. We want to assure everyone of a good future. And that's what I look at this doing. This is helping to ensure that my children, my grandchildren, everybody else's children, everybody else's grandchildren will have a future. I'm not saying that this is an answer, but this is a good step forward. It will not impact people's pensions. It will not impact our tax rates. If anything, this city looking to go more green with the university, the research that the university does, tells me in the future that we have a great future. And why not start it in Lowell? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to offer an amendment to the motion. And the amendment would be to have the motion read that the city council go on record in favor of a resolution in support of Senate 1225, a bill in favor of the state divestment of fossil fuels.
I can support that. Second.
Motion by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council LaMercia to offer an amendment to the original motion. Comments on the amendment? Council Leahy? You all set?
Could we have a roll call on that, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, if I
Council
could-
Kennedy on the motion?
On the amendment, if I could.
Excuse me, the amendment?
I think that it sets a dangerous precedent for this city council to take on issues that it really has very little to do with. And I think that there are a lot of issues that a lot of us support that are global issues or national issues or even statewide issues that this city council doesn't have anything to do with. And so I would hate to see this be the beginning of other groups coming in here every couple of weeks with their issue that we may support, but that and that we could probably support a resolution for, but that we would have zero impact on. And I think that the amendment is offered to make it specific to pending legislation before on Beacon Hill right now. And I think that is at least for me, what makes it be a little bit different. I think that the amendment does not harm the motion at all. I think the intent of the motion remains the same, but at least we have, I think, what I think is a better reason for this issue to be before the city council. Thanks.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion on the amendment. Council Martin.
Thank you. I raised similar concerns that Councilor Kenny raised the last time this was here, because I do think it's really not our issue, and I think that's what I care about the most here, serving as a councilor. Now, I understand people are passionate about this issue. I understand people are passionate about climate change, but I'm not convinced that this resolution or even the Senate bill, were it to pass, would do anything to change climate change, the climate change debate. It wouldn't reduce necessarily the consumption of fossil fuels in this country. And there are a number of authorities, and there is robust debate even within the climate change movement as to whether this is the right approach to take. So I'm skeptical of this. I really don't think it's going to have any impact. I do think that a vote for this is a vote for hypocrisy. We continue to consume fossil fuels. the things we've been able to impact to reduce fossil fuel consumption, like the stretch energy code, we've done. I've been a champion of all those issues, but I don't think this is anything more than a feel-good measure. I don't think it's going to have much impact, and I don't think it's something that we should be spending a whole lot of time on. So I respectfully disagree with a lot of the people that have spoken here tonight. I have read considerably on this issue as recently as this weekend. You know, the president of Harvard, no conservative by any stretch, is against this. Eastern banks, investment advisors, people that were champions of the anti-apartheid movement and divestiture have made convincing points that this may not help anyone. This is not going to help future generations. This is, and these fossil fuel divestment issues pick and choose winners and losers. Companies like Exxon that don't have very good environmental records will be potentially divested. Companies that have better records like Chevron would also be impacted. Companies like Halliburton, one of the worst offenders, not even in the top 200 list of companies that this is intended to impact. So there really is a lot left to the details of this, and I think it's beyond, really what we have the ability to impact here in the Lowell City Council. So I'm opposed to this, and I was opposed before, and I haven't heard much that would change my mind.
Further discussion on this motion? Council Samaras?
Thank you.
On the amendment?
Thank you. I too support Councilor Kennedy's amendment to this because it does address the issue. And I can understand where Councilor Martin is coming from. What is our role? We were voted in by the citizens of Lowell to be Lowell City Councilors to make this a better city. And when you think of the term "make this a better city," there's many ways to assure that we have safety. We've done that. That we're trying to have better economic development. We're working on all of these things. I just think at this particular point, this is not the answer, but this is something in which a group of people have come together to say we're looking to support a better life. There really are no real answers at this particular point. It's just that what can we do as individuals? And I think by supporting the Senate bill, we're sending the same message as was with the original resolution, that these are issues that should be looked upon, and these are issues that should be supported. So it's a matter of conscience, and we all have a different way. I'll say one thing about the city council. Every one of us want the same thing. We want the best we can for the citizens of Lowell. And our job really is the citizens of Lowell, but every so often I think we have to stretch, and my own personal feeling is this is an area where we do this. We have a stretch. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's what's great about this country. You can have a hot-button topic, and you can disagree with the people that spoke. This is democracy at its best, and we can disagree and still be friends. I think of the adage, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm not going to sit here idle while they turn off my water and let me have it every other day in the future. And when they divested state pensions from tobacco companies, wow, that was something that saved my life. Because when cigarettes get $10 a pack, I said, wow, this is too much, I should stop. So this created that, and I'm happy to be free. So we can disagree, but I think this is a very important subject. And if you went outside today, I've never, ever seen September weather so darn hot. When I woke up this morning, it was 78 degrees. That's kind of like unheard of. When it snows, it snows. When it's hot, it's really hot. A very unhealthy day today. I firmly believe that something's being done to change our atmosphere, and I'm certainly one that does not want to sit on my hands. I want to do whatever I can to stop it. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but it will happen because good people had a concern and a cause and got together instead of sitting on their hands and letting the world go by. So thank you for letting me say that.
Council Lee, can you take the chair for a second, please?
Chair recognizes Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I want to qualify right off the bat that I work for an agency that works very diligently to address this, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the agency. I'm just speaking on my behalf. And I'm going to be careful because I've been told to be careful. But I just want to say that I agree this is, on a local level, this is the cradle of democracy. And when we throw up our arms and say, what we do just isn't going to have an impact, I think that's a slope that we don't want to go down. We are the people's voice. I think we're the loudest voice, and we speak. It does echo, maybe from community to community, and then from state to state, and I firmly believe we do have an impact. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, people will try to ignore us, but you can't ignore the masses, and if we don't speak up for people and what we think is important at this level, where do they go to? I read the same article Councilor Martin referred to, and I think that is the epitome of hypocrisy, where you have a learning institution in this country with billions, we're talking billions invested in fossil fuels, and the president says they're not going to divest because it may not make a difference. How about the fact that they made $34.5 million on their investments? And I think that's the bane of the hypocrisy. And I'm going to support the amendment. I'm going to support the resolution, because if we don't speak up, who will? And then how do we get the message to those lawmakers and regulators that we're not going to accept what's taken place in this country and globally? So that's all I want to say. And so I support both the amendment and the resolution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Let me begin by thanking everyone that came out tonight to speak on this important issue, and to thank them for also taking the time. I actually had an opportunity to meet with some of them and go over some of the statistics that they shared with us earlier tonight. I was just wondering, from a procedural standpoint, if we could actually have the Senate Bill 1225 actually made part of the public record. Is that something that we can actually, since we're voting on the amended motion from Councilor Kennedy, if in fact it can at least get put into the public record that we included that as part of the discussion, actually a copy of the Senate bill.
Sure. Do we?
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Manager?
Yeah, we'll get a copy of the of Senate 1225 and attach it to the vote and reference it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call on the amendment.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
No.
Council Mercier.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Motion passes.
Now we need a motion to adopt the original motion as amended.
Right. So roll call on the original.
Motion's been made.
Motion's been made and seconded, so roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
No.
Council Mercier.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. We have 3 or 4 page agenda. You're welcome to stay with us if you'd like. We appreciate your participation and continued involvement in the community, so we thank you. Chair would like to recognize Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While we are under suspension, could we please take 8.9 out of order?
Motion to stay under suspension by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. Motion carries. Next item to take out of order on our agenda is 8.9. Councilor Lee, you want to take the chair? This would be, this is regarding the resolution for Verizon Bios, and it's my motion.
Okay, 8.9, a motion by Mayor Elliott. Request the City Council vote to adopt a resolution calling upon Verizon Fios to deploy Fios high-speed internet technology in the City of Lowell to support economic growth and enhance the lives of Lowell residents. Seconded by
Second.
Councilor Mercia. Mayor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I know this has been before us. I know that we have all spoken of it. We've gotten opinions and rulings and memos from the Law Department relative to Comcast and RCN, and it's a real issue because there are no options. So I know my colleagues have already filed this. I did meet with representatives from Verizon who have many other communities have adopted a similar resolution. There's a copy on the desk of an example that has been adopted, and many other communities that also struggle with not having access to high-speed internet. What's frustrating, or why I think this is important, and I really don't understand. I know there's someone registered to speak who might be able to, but Lowell and Dracut, the only communities in the Lowell area in which Verizon has chosen not to deploy fiber optic state-of-the-art Fios that services the internet, voice, and cable. Chelmsford, Tingsboro, Tewksbury, Billerica, Lawrence, Andover, Methuen, Westford, Wilmington, and North Andover, they all have Fios. It is my understanding, and I hope a couple of the speakers will clarify, that Appleton Mills right here in the city does have Fios. They were going to check on it. But, you know, that being the case, and even parts of Dracut, why, I don't understand why we in Lowell don't have it when all other communities do have it. So this resolution, similar to many other communities, just calls upon Verizon Fios to give us what everyone else has. So, you know, I don't want to carry on. We've had long discussions, and I've supported other motions, and I hope the council will support this resolution calling upon Verizon Fios to put high-speed internet technology in Lowell. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion before we open up the speaker? Go to the speaker first? Okay. The registered speaker?
Lee Gitchia.
Good evening,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Manager, Mayor Elliott, City Councilors. I'm speaking in favor of the resolution brought forward by Mayor Elliott.
Just your name and
My
address.
name is
Lee.
My name is Lee Gitcher. I'm a lifelong resident of Lowell. I live at 67 Hawthorne Street. I'm an 18-year employee of the telephone company, now known as Verizon. I'm also the president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 2321, which represents all the Verizon workers who live and work in the 43 communities throughout the Merrimack Valley and the North Shore. As president of my local union, we also take on the task of being an advocate for the citizens and consumers in our community as well as the community as a whole. I'm here today to ask the City Council to join with other cities and towns to support this resolution before you tonight, which strongly urges the utility regulators of Massachusetts to insist that high-speed internet cable services be included among providers as basic services, and to work to ensure that rural residents have access to the newest and most efficient telecommunication technologies available. This resolution accompanies and supports a call to action of Verizon top executives with letters from mayors and cities and town managers throughout the Commonwealth and across the East Coast. City Manager Murphy has already endorsed our efforts. I've had the opportunity to talk at length to Mayor Elliott, City Councilor Dan Rook on this extremely important issue. I would like to thank them for taking the time to meet with our local union representatives. Being the fourth largest city in the state, Lowell's at a disadvantage for not only the consumers who have little or no competition to get cable and broadband services, but also our business community and economic development initiatives, which would benefit from the fastest internet speeds available brought by fiber optics. The great city of Lowell currently has fiber optics deployed throughout the city, feeding various Verizon electronic equipment and other high-tech services needed from large businesses. What many of you on the council might not know, there are parts of Lowell where these fiber optic cables are delivering Verizon Fios double play, the voice and internet, also known as broadband data, but not the video. Just a short walk from here, you will find the Appleton Mills, and this morning we found out the Boot Mills also have Fios voice and internet data. The Crosspoint Towers, which has many Verizon workers in the building, also has Verizon Fios in there. I am sure it's not too tough for Verizon to negotiate with the City of Cable franchise agreement and make Fios triple play available to everyone in Lowell. It's tough to watch TV, hearing the radio, reading in the papers, all the Verizon Fios advertisements, how great this service is. We, unfortunately, in this city might never know. Then knowing that all the surrounding communities, such as Chelmsford, Tingsboro, Tewksbury, Borica, Lowell, Andover, Methuen, Westford, Wilmington, and North Andover, all have Fios where the great city of Lowell's been left out. In closing, I believe this resolution is the first step in bringing vital cable and internet competition to the city and upgrading the telecommunication infrastructure and services that sustain jobs in our community and, just importantly, helps attract more high-tech sector business into Lowell. Again, I'd like to thank Mayor Elliott for bringing this resolution forward. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on the Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I know we talked about it just 2 weeks ago, but I do appreciate Mayor Elliott putting on the table once again. It's very, very important. There is a monopoly going on here. Comcast is literally the only gig in town, and they're able to charge whatever they want. It has become the highest utility. It is outrageous what they're charging, and mostly because there is no competition. That will, if enough people start calling to cancel, their prices will drop dramatically. That has been proven. So now, Mr. Manager, you did craft a letter last week, and I'm assuming that's out in the mail right now, maybe in received, but perhaps maybe a follow-up phone call to really express our interest and how willing we are to work with Verizon on this. I think would be suitable in this occasion, because, again, I think it's very important. So I do support the motion very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to suggest, assuming that the resolution is going to pass, that the mayor's office may want to send the resolution out to Drake and see if Drake would join the city and just to make our voice a little bit louder. If we are the only two communities, it makes sense, to me at least, to have Drake join with us in trying to get Fios. So that's just a suggestion to the mayor's office, but I think it's a good one.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In addition to the obvious advantages that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and what Councilor Belanger mentioned tonight about just the pricing and the competition of having Verizon here, down the line in the future, by doing this now, the city opens itself up to all the future technologies that we may not be able to get in here. Councilor Martin mentioned last meeting about maybe a citywide Wi-Fi type scenario, and this is the first step. I think this is the closest the city has been in a long time to hopefully getting Verizon here. Congratulations to the work that was done behind the scenes to get this here. Manager, for writing that letter to the mayor, for doing this resolution as well. And, I did see a copy of the resolution, and I know that there's space there for signatures this evening. So whether we can do it tonight or send it to the law department, however we should go about doing it, I'll be in favor of getting that done as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Any further, Councilor Mercia?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Many times I'm out and about and people say, how come we can't get FiOS here? So I'm very thrilled to see that motion before us, because my firm belief is that competition is healthy. It's a very healthy thing, so, except on Election Day. But anyway, no, you know what I mean.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. So,
Sure, Councilor Belanger.
through you to Council Rook, so it's advantageous to probably have the law department review this before we enact it. Is that necessary at this point?
City
As a
Solicitor?
solicitor.
Sure, you can in one evening, even though the typical process would be to bring this back. You certainly can pass resolutions in a single evening, and this resolution is before you.
Sure, Mr. Manager?
If I can make a suggestion, if you pass the resolution, we'll prepare it with signature lines and then circulate it for everybody's signature.
Sounds good. Any,
If I may interject, if
sure, Mr. Clerk?
if the manager could do the same for the resolution and just pass on the fossil fuels, because there wasn't a formalized resolution before the body.
Right, right.
Okay. Sounds good. All those any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. All those opposed, ayes have, motion passed.
Okay, we'll move on to the next, we'll go back to, we have some public hearings that were advertised for 7 PM, so we'll go right to those public hearings. The first public hearing is a general public hearing. It's an order to abandon portion of Edgewood Street. This will be the second reading. Commonwealth of Massachusetts City Lowell and City Councils in order to vacate, discontinue, and abandon certain public interests, rights, and easements in a portion of Edgewood Street in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts. We'll now open up this portion of the public hearing for anyone who wishing to speak in favor. Your name and address, please, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Attorney George Theodore representing Joseph and Donna Corvos, who are the petitioners herein. They have presented this petition to the city to abandon a portion of Edgewood, which lies between their property at 133 Havilah and in between 115 Havilah. My clients have built a new home at 133 Havilah, which is substantially completed. In doing their site work here, it came to their attention that there was an abandoned city paper street to the west of their property, and they thought it would be prudent to present this petition to abandon this portion, allowing for more of a buffer between the two neighboring lots for landscaped areas. We understand that the city has conducted a study of this, and there is no reason for the development of this portion of Edgewood. We ask that you would act favorably on this and place it back on the tax rolls. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else in favor? In favor, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll now open up this portion of the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we'll now close that portion of the public hearing as well. Entertain on this motion? We'll entertain a motion this has to go to the clerk's office for 7 days. Motion to send that to the clerk's office by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. That motion carries. This is referred to the clerk's office for 7 days. Next public hearing that has been advertised is an ordinance. This is an ordinance to amend Article 6, Section 272-87. It's an annual sewer charge. We'll now open up this portion of the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak. Oh, let me read the order. Commonwealth of Massachusetts in City of Lowell, in City Council is an ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 272, Article 6, Section 272-87, entitled Annual Sewer Charge. Now open up this portion of the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak in favor. In favor? Anyone in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We will now open up this portion of the public hearing for anyone who is opposed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the public hearing as well. What is the wish of the body? Discussion? Motion to approve?
So moved.
By Council Milonazo, second by Council Rourke. Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Present.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin. Counsel Mercia.
Present.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
6 yeas.
6 yeas. I just want to disclose my vote that this has to do with CSOs and the city has a rod with EPA, so. Motion carries. Further, moving on to, that concludes our public hearings. Moving on to the next item. We'll go back to communications from the city manager. And we were on motion response A. Further discussion on motion response A, 2015 paving schedule. Okay, we concluded that issue. Moving on to motion response B, banning unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Council Mercia?
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance. Is it going to be an ordinance where it's going to go to a public hearing, or what is this?
Mr. Manager, this was a motion that I filed. Mr. Manager?
Basically, what we did is we've drafted a proposed ordinance that we want to wait until the FAA comes out with their regulations relative to drones. We attach the ordinance just as a sample of what we expect to bring to the council in the near future, but we're not asking that the ordinance be voted on. This is just a report of what we will do when the FAA releases its regulations.
That's what I wanted, clarification. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy on motion response B?
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. So this is just, I understand a draft, but, so a couple of questions I had on the draft, like when it says you can't fly by over a school, but what about like say on weekends if these type of aircraft stuff become kind of popular, would you be able to take your kid, if you live next to the school, go to the school on the weekend? Is it going to be that cut and dry, black and white, or is there room for, like going to the park on the weekend if, how close do you get to the playground versus being on the baseball field of the park, so.
These are all things that we're hoping that the FAA will define for us so that we can include it in the ordinance, but I guess the real thing is we wanted to make sure that there would be no time that any drones would be hovering over a school any day of the week, taking pictures or anything that's going on.
All right. I just didn't know if it was like school hours when kids were there.
No, whenever.
Yeah.
Because they have cookouts, spaghetti dinners,
Okay.
so it's any time.
All right, thank you.
Further discussion on motion response B. Council Samaras?
I know you're waiting for a ruling from the FAA, but the thing is, because this right now includes sporting events, I'm thinking of Lowell High School football games, and these are the type of events where this type of instrument would be used. And I think, based on safety needs, that should be included, major events that take place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion on motion response B? Seeing none, we'll move on to motion response C. CBA consolidation project. Moving on, we'll move on to motion response D, that is Eagle Park surveillance, excuse me. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, stemming from a violent incident that took place at Eagle Park in the early summer, in a neighborhood meeting that followed shortly thereafter, was very well attended by the neighborhood residents, very concerned about how this park has really deteriorated with the folks that have been hanging out there as of late. But through a motion I made weeks ago about adding lighting and surveillance, it looks like it's going to be coming into fruition in the very near future. The superintendent of the police is seeking out grant funds for camera system that will integrate with our current system to offer some monitoring here at this park, and I think that's great news for those residents in that neighborhood. I know they will be well received to hear that when I go to the neighborhood group meeting later in the month. So it's great news. I want to thank the police chief and all those involved to help make this a reality, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion on motion response D. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we got a response, a very good report here on the municipal liens, and it says in 2012, for example, there were approximately 665 accounts in tax title, and today there are approximately 187 properties in tax title. In the past 3 years, Lowell has seen a decrease in overall number of tax titles by approximately 70%. I think that's pretty good, and we're still working on it, so I had to bring that up. I thought that was very interesting to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion on motion response E,
Mr. Mayor.
municipal lien auction. Council Kennedy.
Yeah. If I could, I think that this is a very good report. Through you to the manager and to the city solicitor, I think the city solicitor did a good job putting this report together. Over the 4 years, I guess, that we've had this, I think that, when we started 4 years ago, the original intent was just to bring in more money into the city coffers, but it seems to have had other good highlights that maybe weren't originally expected. The only thing that would have been good is if we could have had an aggregate total of how much has been raised. I think if you take the past fiscal year as an example, then it's probably brought in about $10 million in the aggregate over the past 4 years. Would that be close to accurate?
Sorry,
Madam
that
Solicitor?
would be a rough figure as
Okay.
to what has been brought in.
Okay. If we could get that number, I'd be interested in what that is. And I know that there's really two numbers, aren't there? There's the amount of money that's actually brought in, and then there's the amount of money that people tend to bring in before the auction because they don't want to put have their property be at risk at all.
Right, if I may, to be clear, these numbers are based on all of those numbers together, because
Okay.
that is part of a single process. So even once the notices go out and all those properties that are in tax title the owners receive a notice of it, the payment that is calculated is based on either payment prior to the auction or payment after the auction. But it's all part of the same process.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on municipal lien auction response. Seeing none, we'll move on to motion response F, request Mass DOT clean up VFW highway. They have been out there on a couple of occasions. Appreciate the administration getting Mass DOT out there. Motion to accept the motion response and place on file by Council Belanger, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion passes.
Hey, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Kennedy?
If there's no objection by the body, I would like to request that we bundle 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 together and make a motion that we accept all three resignations.
Second.
And place the letters on file. Thank
Second.
Motion by Councilor Kennedy to bundle 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. They're all resignations from Green Building Commission and one from the Board of Health. And
Yes.
take it once.
Second.
Second by Counsel Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Motion to accept resignations and place on file by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Resignations are accepted and placed on file. That brings us to 3.5. This is a communication. It's the reappointment of Craig Kelly to the Board of Health to fill vacant position created by resignation of Paulette Renaud Caragianis.
Move approval.
Move approval by Counsel Kennedy, seconded by Counsel Belanger. Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas. Move on to the next communication, which is the appointment of Eric Lamarche to the Council on Aging. Move to approve by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Martin. Discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo. Excuse me. Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Next item is a communication.
Out-of-state travel right there.
The communication from the city manager. Dear Mayor Elliott and members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority vested in me as city manager under Mass General Law 10, Section 58, and 962 CMR 20, I have appointed the following person to membership on the Lowell Cultural Council: Laura Fry, 21 Perkins Street, number 321, Lowell, Mass.
Move to accept the communication, place it on file.
Move to accept the communication placed on file by Counsel Kennedy, second by Counsel Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Mr. Manager.
Yes, I'd like to introduce the newest member of the council, Laura, and as you can see by her resume, she has extensive experience. If you could come up to the microphone, and extensive experience in this cultural field. It's a pleasure to appoint her to this board, and could you just introduce yourself and tell why you want to be on the Cultural Council?
Absolutely. Laura Fry, I live at 21 Perkins Street. I got introduced to Lowell because I came here as a student. I studied music at UMass Lowell and have since worked in all different types of cultural organizations. I currently am employed as a major gift officer for the Boston Ballet, and previously I was director of development for Merrimack Repertory Theater. So I had a lot of experience applying to Cultural Council grants and attended many of the Lowell Cultural Council grant meetings. And so I'm very excited to be a part of the other side of this process. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We thank you very much. We're delighted to have you with all your experience and all that you can add to the culture in the city of Lowell. So thank you, welcome, and we'll look forward to seeing you quite often.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Move on to the next communication. It's a communication from the city manager. City manager requests out-of-state travel for 2 members of the Lowell Police Department, 2 members of the Division of Planning and Development to, can I have those 2, Mr. Clerk? The first is to send 2 members to the International Association of Chiefs of Police conference, and the second is to send 2 members from the Division of Planning and Development to Community Development Association. No. There's 2 from the police department. The other one is to send an individual from the Lowell Police Department to the Homicide and Violent Crimes Investigation in Nashua, and 2 members to go to the Community Development Association CDBD training for practitioners. Correct? And the second one is from DPD is to go send the building commissioner to the International Code Council public comment hearings. Council Martin.
Thank you. I thought it was important that we recognize that one of the travel events is to honor, is for Sean Shanahan to accept an award. I guess over the years, you could say we've had some uneven performance in the building department. Certainly, some have performed better than others, and it's not been without its share of controversies. But at least since Mr. Shanahan is under his tenure, I think he's brought some stability to the office. I hear from people in the development community that they can get answers. They might not always like what it is, but there's an even-handedness and quick turnaround time, which I think is important when we're trying to encourage economic development. I know Mr. Shanahan's worked hard at getting the certifications he needs to first gain this position and then hold it. So I think that department is performing very well. I think a lot of it's due to his leadership and diligence, and it's good to see he's being recognized in his field, and I thought we should make recognition of it too. So thanks for pointing it out, Mr. Manager. I think that's, we have somebody who's doing a good job and he's being recognized, so that's, I think, a feather in the cap of the city as well as Mr. Shanahan's individually.
I agree, Council. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I think that's an important, very important award that he is receiving. Council Leahy?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo that also because just being out in the street, I hear a lot of good positive things, and it's quite an honor that for Mr. Shanahan to get this. So we're moving in the right direction. People are happy, and dealing with Mr. Shanahan, he's very proactive too. So I like that. Thank you.
Further discussion? Move to approve by Council Samaras, seconded by Council Rourke. Roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy. Yes. Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
9 yeas. Next item on the agenda, we move on to the next section of votes from the city manager. First vote is to amend access license agreement for 1 Cayenne Street. This requires two readings. Entertain a motion to waive the full reading by Council Milonazo, second by Council Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. Second reading will be by title. Commonwealth of Massachusetts City Lowell in City Council is a vote. Authorizing the city manager execute an amendment to access license agreement to Mass Electric Company doing business as National Grid regarding property at 1 Cayenne Street, Lowell, to collect soil and groundwater samples to determine the nature and the extent of oil and hazardous materials as requested by DEP to evaluate potential remedial options. Entertain a motion to approve by Council Martin, second by Council Leahy. Roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Could I just get a call? Is this close to Fay Street or out that area? Okay, present.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy. Yes. Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
8 yeas. Motion passes. Move on to, that concludes the votes from the city manager. We move on to ordinances from the city manager. We have an ordinance to amend Chapter 56-2 entitled Personnel Positions Enumerated at the Lowell Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant for an electrician. That'll be the first reading. Entertain a motion. This has to go to a public hearing on September 22nd, 2015 at 7 p.m. Motion to refer this to the public for a public hearing by Council Belanger, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And opposed, that motion passes.
Mr. Mayor,
Council Milonazo.
if I could on the ordinance,
Yes.
again, knowing that it's going to go to a public hearing, but on paragraph 2 where it reads, the change of the electrician from MVEA Unit 2 to the Department Head 1 comes with the understanding that he will continue to cover overtime with no additional funding. Instead of using the word he, should we just put the position as opposed to having, I mean, could someday be a she?
Absolutely.
And this is an ordinance, again, you know, I know it's coming back to the council, but just from the
So we'll
standpoint.
make that change.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. Anything else while we're back on that ordinance? Seeing none. We'll now proceed with, next section, we'll proceed to reports, subcommittee reports. This evening, there was a Public Safety Subcommittee report. The chair would like to recognize the chairman of that subcommittee, Counselor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight at 5 p.m., conduct the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting. Along myself, member Councilor Mercia, also member Councilor Belanger, were present. Tonight we discussed two topics. The first was a discussion regarding regionalization of a 911 dispatch center, and secondly was the use of tasers by the Lowell Police Department. Also present for the meeting, Mr. Mayor, was Manager Murphy, yourself, Councilor Milanazzo, Councilor Samaras, Data Manager for the City of Lowell, Rodney Conley, Superintendent of Police, Bill Taylor, and the Fire Chief, Jeff Winwood. The meeting began, Mr. Mayor, with a presentation from two members of MCOG, Beverly Woods and Jay Donovan. The presentation included the possible savings, state funding, training, and the service of a proposed call center. The highlight of their presentation, they stated to the committee that Lowell could achieve a $266,000 savings. The call center, if agreed upon, would be 2 to 3 years away from completion and or operation. They stated it would be manned, obviously, 24 hours a day with a 10-member crew, which is an important fact for later on in the meeting. Manager Murphy did speak next. His recommendation concerned two major obstacles. The first was the finances, and the second was the management and the operation of the call center. At that point in time, Data Manager Rodney Conley spoke, and he had stated that the savings would not quite be the $266,000 that the MCOG representatives had stated. It would be considerably less. The state would be limited in the cost that the city may save would not equate to the public safety measures that we want to take place. Chief Winwood spoke next. The chief had stated that the clear advantage of keeping it in the city is response time, canceling out the middleman, especially obviously with fires and disasters of that sort. Superintendent Taylor spoke of the possible loss of control of dispatch, and especially in emergency situations. Superintendent Taylor also mentioned that, if grouped with the other three communities, which would be Chelmsford, Drake, and Tewksbury, that over 70% of the calls would come from Lowell, and that would not benefit us with only having a 25% say in proposed rules, regulations of a proposed center. There were multiple public speakers that spoke against becoming part of a district-wide agreement. The reasons stated before were mentioned again. And getting back to the manning of a possible regional dispatch, Lowell, for example, at a minimum has 6 dispatchers on call all the time. So that would, for Lowell, would lose 2 because you would have 2 from the other surrounding towns. So that was brought up. Members of the public spoke of how just the cut down time of having it in Lowell, the dispatchers knowing the streets, knowing the neighborhoods, knowing the people involved. Councilor Mercia made numerous good points, stating that in Lowell alone there are streets that have both streets and avenues. I think Florence Street, Florence Ave, First Street, First Ave. So there's just a lot of things that I think would take a lot of time. It wouldn't be worth the city to take part in the regional dispatch. At that point in time in the meeting, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Belanger made a motion for the subcommittee to recommend to the City Council that we do not enter into a district agreement for a 911 call center. It was unanimously approved, and it was brought to the council for a possible vote this evening. Secondly, on the agenda, we spoke about the possible use.
So, Mr. Chairman, do we want to take that motion up?
Yes.
We'll take that motion up. So the motion was to recommend that that we adopt the recommendation of the city manager not to enter into agreement for a regional 911 center. A motion by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Belanger. Discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Yes.
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 9 yeas, motion carries. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, for final report.
Quickly, Mr. Mayor, the second part of the meeting was concerning tasers and the use by the Lowell Police Department. Officer Chuck Bachara of the Waltham Police Department gave us a presentation. During his presentation, he highlighted both the use of tasers and also the benefits. Superintendent Taylor stated that the police department is scheduled to purchase 60 tasers, and going over the next couple of years, he wants to increase that number of tasers for the entire police department. The advantages stated to the use of tasers included a reduced injury to both the suspects and the officers, reduced litigation, and reduced workman's compensation cases. The taser works twofold. The first is just a 5-second stun, which renders the suspect immobile from a small shock given through prongs. The second was actually a slight shot of electricity that could be delivered directly to the suspect. Superintendent stated that the department will have extensive taser policy in place that includes training, recordings of usage, and compliance. After the discussion, Council Belanger once again made a motion of a report of progress. With that being said, that ended the meeting and brought to you today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke, for that report. Further discussion on tasers? The officers that are stationed at these meetings will not be having those tasers, Mr. Manager? Further discussion on the report, motion to entertain the report is a report of progress by Councilor Samara, second by Councilor Rourke. On the, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get out of the subcommittee reports, if I might add, at the last city council meeting when I was reporting the Parks and Recreation subcommittee report, there was another exciting piece of information that I inadvertently forgot to mention, and that was with respect to the new scoreboard at Colley Stadium. The varsity football program begins on this Friday, September 11th, and the goal was to not only purchase a new scoreboard, but to have it installed and ready for the start of the football season. Well, here's the update as told to us by Commissioner Tom Bellegarde that I should have announced at the time of my subcommittee report 2 weeks ago, but it probably is more interesting to learn now, so close to Friday, September 11th. So here it is now, that on September 3rd, the scoreboard left the factory, and on the 8th, the scoreboard should have arrived, and on the 9th, the scoreboard will be installed, and on the first day of football season, which is on Friday, Friday, September the 11th, the scoreboard will be up and functioning, Councilor Leahy. Is that happy to you? As requested by Councilor Leahy. Because we were able to save and use the steel frame that still was in excellent shape, much time was saved and the timeline goal was achieved. But we should never forget that all this came together with the support of very generous people. The idea came from Tom Machado, who noticed that we have a state-of-the-art Colley Stadium complex, but the sign was less complimentary and falling apart. Former Mayor Bud Caulfield came forward and started a campaign to raise money along with Tom Shanahan, Butch Fratiani, and the Owl Diner Charities. John Chemley, Dave Daly, Officer Erickson, and the Lowell 5 came forward because of the efforts of so many wonderful and generous people, too numerous to mention every one. An idea was thought of, a goal was set, and on Friday, September 11th, mission accomplished. So congratulations to all the people involved. I think that is wonderful. And if I might say the second thing, may I inform the public that on Saturday, September 19th at noontime, we will have the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the new splash pad, improved park playground, picnic area, basketball court, and wiffle ball court at Mulligan Park on Plain Street. The public is invited for a very wonderful, eye-opening experience that will deliver the best benefits for our children. So this council is moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier, for that update and information. Great progress. Further discussion under reports. If there's no objection, we did receive on our, if no objection, I just would like to have a discussion about the auditor resumes that we all did receive. We received upwards of 10 of them. So sometime in the future, we can set a deadline to get or a procedure to get them to the clerk. I don't know if the council wanted to discuss that this evening, or if we wanted to, what's the wish of the body? We did receive 10 resumes, so should we set a deadline of sometime next week to send the clerk a certain number of names? Is there a desire to send 3 names, 5 names?
Well,
anyone thoughts?
Yeah.
Council Mercia,
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, some time ago when we did this before, not too very long ago, we took all these names home and all the applications, and we chose 5, but the 5th became tied with the 6th, so we opened it up to 6 only because of that tie. We can do the same thing, and then Mary Callery could put together a list of, like, from the council, how many chose this person's name and that person, and so the top 5 would perhaps come forward for interviews, if that was the wish of the body.
Okay. I'm not sure if members have had time to go through it, but many of the
It's
candidates.
only 11, so to
Yeah,
pick 5 out of
many of them are not qualified, so do we want to take some time to take a look at it before we interview, or do we want to interview 5 or 3?
Mr. Mayor,
5.
Council
with all
Belanger?
due respect, we may find that we may want to do a search again. I mean, as much as I decline to say that, but from what I've seen very briefly, many of them are underqualified, and it could involve another search. I hope not, but.
Well, Council Leahy?
Yeah, why don't we take a look at them? We just got them tonight, and then we can decide at the next meeting how many, if indeed we want to interview or go out for another search.
So can I suggest this, that we don't work, I mean, we're not going to meet for 2 more weeks, and thank you to Mr. Healy for volunteering to be here. I use that term lightly, for volunteering to be the interim auditor. But can I suggest that the clerk poll, that we contact that we send an email, or the email clerk reach out to poll members after you had an opportunity to read the resumes and say, should we proceed with 3 candidates, or should we proceed with perhaps re-advertising? Does that make sense? And then the clerk can contact us and let us all know that, the desire of the body is to proceed with one direction or the other. That way we don't have to wait till the next meeting, and at the next meeting we can proceed in a particular direction. If there's no objection to that, then form of a motion, Council Kennedy, that we have the clerk reach out to members of the council and poll the council on whether their desire is to proceed with re-advertising or to interview X amount of candidates.
By when? We need some kind of deadline, right?
By Friday? Friday, okay?
By this Friday?
By Friday. Thank you, Council. Second by Council Belanger. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll look forward to hearing from you. Moving on to the next section of the agenda, we are on section 7. 7.1, we have claims. We have 2 property claims. Motion to refer this to the Law Department for a report and recommendation by Council Leahy, second by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. There's another petition request from National Grid. This is for a request to install 1 pole at Oak Avenue. That's the first reading. This requires a public hearing. Motion to refer this to a public hearing on September 22nd by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, public hearing on September 22nd. Now move on to section 8. That is city council motions. The first motion of the evening is motion by Council Mercia. Request city manager have proper department post 3 signs. No parking during snow emergencies across from 90 East Roper Street. Second by Councilor Samaras. We have a registered speaker, Mr. Clerk.
No, I don't see him here.
I'll call him out. Stuart Siegel.
Yeah, he's not here.
He's not here.
but he's the gentleman that gave me the motion, and I was in that area last year when he called me, and it was the most frightening thing I ever seen. Across from 90E Roper Street is a fence, a wooden fence, quite large, a long length of fence. And people park there all the time. And I don't have a problem with people parking there in the summer. Nobody cares about that. But when we're told to get our cars off the street and those cars remain there and they leave them there and they're covered with snow to the point where I couldn't believe that there was a car under there. And just imagine our city plows or a family man that's coming by working for the city and doesn't realize that there's a car buried under that pile of snow and he wants to push it over further. He's going to get severely hurt. So I think that there should be at least, well, he asked for 4 signs, but I'm only asking for 3, because one in, one at the other, and one in the middle, that says no parking here during snow emergencies, so they get it off the street. That's very frightening. I saw that in person last year, and I had to go and unbury the car because I didn't believe that there was a car under there. How dangerous is that for the snowplow people that go by and could be, go through the windshield themselves when they hit like a rock, which is a car. So I think that's a public safety issue right there. If you don't mind, it speaks for itself. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next motion of the evening, again by Councilor Mercia. Request City Manager and Property Department increase enforcement of any applicable codes on constant unruly neighbors who are disrupting the quality of life in the neighborhood. Second by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With this motion, when I say to have the proper department step up enforcement, I'm not just referring to the police department. I'm referring to whatever department needs to be present to stop what is happening in the city from further danger, whether it be code inspectors, health inspectors, fire prevention, or the police department. Let me tell you what brought this motion before you this evening. So let me paint a picture. A house is sold in any particular neighborhood. The new owners does not live in the house or two-family home, but lives in Chelmsford, Tewksbury, or any surrounding community. The sole goal is to collect rent and not to care about his neighbors because he or she doesn't live there. Knowing this, the tenant has a field day with numerous parties, cookouts on the deck. And I don't mind cookouts on the deck, but from what I saw, a health inspector would not allow this type of a vessel being used to be cooking stuff on a wooden deck. Knowing that this tenant has a field day with these cookouts on decks that's very dangerous to fires, and no concern for his or her neighbors. The landlord's property now becomes an eyesore. People are now sleeping out in the backyard tents, too drunk to have made it home. Maybe that's a good thing because they're not driving to kill somebody. But now parking becomes an issue with all the many house guests that never seem to leave. Now a new friend moves into this two-family home and seems to have either a roofing or siding business or some business that requires ladders, with multiple trucks and more cars associated with this piece of property. My issue is not so much sometimes with the tenants, but with the landlords that allow this to happen. They have been called numerous times and have done nothing but come and collect the rent and go to their tranquil palatial estate. At one of these houses, the storm door was broken, and when the slightest breeze picks up, the door will slam against the house. Neighbors can hear this at all hours of the night. The landlord knew this, but his only concern was to collect the $2,300 rent and head back to suburbia. What once was a relatively quiet neighborhood has now become a problem property. This is not the scenario for one piece of property that I'm telling you about. This is a picture that I painted in a few areas of the city, of which I have addresses for. Let us put ourselves in their position and stop this negative quality of life from happening to good tax-paying residents who work hard to maintain a good neighborhood for themselves and their neighbors. Some of what I said is also referred to students at UMass Lowell who thinks life is a party. One rents an apartment and 7 others move in. 5 of the 7 have cars. Does anybody want this here to be their neighbors? I don't want that. Why should they have to live like this themselves? So there are problems out there, Mr. Manager. I'm only telling you about a few. I'm telling you about 3 sections of the city that within 2 weeks, people called me with similar concerns. I narrowed it down to say what I had to say, but it's similar to all 3 areas. And it's very, very frustrating when you worked hard to maintain your property and the house is now finally sold, a 2-family, and people move in that could care less about you, and the landlord doesn't even live there. He's gone, but he wants that money. So he don't care what your quality of life turns into. They're destroying the property. The landlord doesn't care. Doors are falling off. It's just horrible situation all around for people. We live in a home where we don't hear this, but we have to take into consideration what's happening out there to good people. And it's not appealing, it's not nice, and we have to do something about it. So I'm bringing this forward to see if we can do something about this. I mean, one scenario was that they were just aggravated, and neighbors are aggravated, but they don't want to call the police for fear that they're going to get retaliated on. So there's no system of troubled property there. So the police hands are tied as well. So I guess they'd have to call the police, and it's into the CAD system, and then it spits out an address as, oh my God, we got these 7 calls at different times. That's what I'm telling people. Don't hold it in and just call me and think we can do something. We need a trail there. You're telling me all about your nightmare, but it's never logged or no information has been put. So this is what I'm just bringing. I'm bringing the voice of the people here because this is what they're telling me in 3 places in the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Manager, I'm wondering, just following up, if there is some data element that can be put into the CAD system that could, at some point send a communication to development services. So they can respond to calls, and if there are, building and/or health violations, something, the resident doesn't have to call inspectional services after they call the police, that the police can go and they can report, say on a Monday morning, an email or a report is sent automatically to inspectional services. Mr. Manager?
No, that's an excellent point, and actually, that's the way it works if they use eGov, because, Karen Moynihan goes through those eGovs every morning and then refers them to the proper department. So we get those all of the time, and they don't necessarily have to have the police show up. Our building department will show up, and it doesn't have the same specter as the police department, but they're making them comply with this certain zoning code. So eGov is a great way of making sure that it gets to the proper department.
May I just say, I'm not against people having a party. As we speak today, the neighbor next door had quite a few people over. He told us it was happening. He has this once a year. I welcome it. If I were home, I'd probably be there myself. But the fact remains, this is partying every single, not only the weekend, during the week when people have to work. This isn't appropriate. Everybody has cookouts. Everybody has family over and a ton of people during the day, and that's the end of that. And maybe next week they will too, but this is constant all the time. It's just annoying, and it's not the proper way that it should be.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I just think it's worthy of looking into. So when there is a complaint lodged, they don't, police can say, hey, you got to send inspectional services over there. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. I just wanted to add
Councilor
that
Belanger.
we've gotten these calls over the year, and recently we received a few more, but I did want to say that I have, from speaking with people in the inspectional department, that I know that your office, Mr. Manager, bringing in, the worst offenders. So, and you're probably, I don't know how long you've been dealing with this, but I have heard that you're pulling them in and you're reading them the riot act and making sure that they straighten up or, get out of the city. But, so, anything that we can do to help you, anything that, any suggestions that we have that can streamline this process, and like Councilor Mercia said, we need the documentation so that, we can do this, pull these people in and tell them, so. But I wanted people to know that you're doing that because I had heard it just through inspectionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think it's a good motion. We all hear numerous complaints on this issue where, whether it's someone moves in and out, and then the whole neighborhood's in an uproar. But for starters, residents need to be urged to call the police. No one should be living held hostage in fear of calling the police, okay? You do not hesitate. Don't anybody let your quality of life be deteriorated by some bad behavior next door. Please, you're urged to call the police. And the more times that you do, that raises a flag to that address where code inspectors can get involved and whatnot. It will help your cause. But I think a lot of times what you see in these units where illegal activity is going on is that you see an abundance of people who exceed their legal occupancy. Now, a two-bedroom is on average 5 or 6 occupants per dwelling. All too often, they far exceed that. So I know it's difficult to police with 30,000 some odd dwellings in the city, but you see a lot of time where this illegal activity, inappropriate activity goes on, is that quite often they do exceed the number of occupants in the unit, and that is something that we have a leg to stand on when someone is constantly being called upon. So I think it's a good motion, and there's ways to combat it, but and we do have initiatives in place with the problem properties and whatnot, but these are more or less for nuisance homeowners and whatnot. But I think it's a good motion, and I do support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. Next motion of the evening by Councilor Mercia, request city manager provide an update and a summary of the types of events booked by the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. Second by Councilor Martin. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to get a report as to what type of events are happening, what type of shows. Are we having any shows at the auditorium? Like, I'm going to tell you what triggered this motion. I went out to eat at this local restaurant, and the owner sat down with me. I thought he was a dinner guest with me, but that was okay. And he talked about how his business is losing money at a rapid pace, more so this year than ever before. It's on a steady decline. And I said, why is that? He said, I don't know. He said, I think that, he said, I may have to fold up soon. And that's troubling because this is a well-established restaurant in this city. I don't want to say any names, but he said, I attributed a little bit to the auditorium because nobody from the auditorium is coming over here. Where years ago with the shows that they had, the different types of shows, patrons would come out of there and eat, or before they went, they would eat. So whether they came after or before, they're not doing that now. I don't have hardly anybody that's coming from the auditorium, and that troubled me immensely. So if we have, let's say, recitals, that's good for the economy, but not good for restaurants, because recitals or competitions and then they leave, I don't know what to tell you. They're not going to go to another type of... This is an establishment where if you were out on a date or you took your mother out and before you went to see the show, you went to have something to eat, or girlfriends went out, and this isn't going to do it with recitals. And please don't get me wrong, we need everything coming into the city that we can get, but I want to see what they're offering there at the auditorium, because there's no spin-off that I can see, according to this person. I would like to have some sort of a survey whereby our downtown coordinator goes and talks to the businesses and say, are you getting much of a spinoff from the auditorium? How can we help you to, sustain you here? What's going on? We need some cooperation. I don't know what it is. I really don't know the answer to that. So I'm just bringing this up to see, is it something that's not happening we have to step it up a bit? I don't know, but I'm just trying to, I don't want this business to go out of the city because they've been here a long time. They've been contributing to the quality of life in the downtown, and when the call is asked, they contribute in more ways than one, and I don't want to see them leave, but that bothered me, almost to the point where I had indigestion while I was eating, listening to the sad story, but we got to do something. It's a wake-up call we got to move forward and do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. No, I agree. I think it's a great motion. I know exactly what Councilor Mercy is talking about. I've been approached by the same individual, and there's no doubt events at the auditorium have declined dramatically. The loss of Tom McKay and the trio has been devastating. They really had that building going on. There's no two ways about it. We miss them sadly over there, but it's under a new management company now. And, we should get an update to what is going on, and this will maybe perhaps put a little pressure on them too, is like, we're watching, and, and we don't seeing much happening. And if it's no problem with the maker of the motion, I'd like to amend it to, include a list of events, in 2016, what's booked for the remaining of the year into 2016, not only at the auditorium, but at the Songa Center as well, because that's managed by the same firm, Global Spectrum. So it'll be very easy to provide and let them know, we're hearing it from businesses, there's no activity, what's going on there. So I think it's a good message, a good motion by Councilor Mercier, and we can send a good message to them that we're watching and we're not seeing much going on. If it's no problem, I'd like to amend the motion
Yes.
to include the Songa Center.
Support the amendment. That's fine. That's true. Yes.
Motion to amend by Councilor Belanger, second by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Motion to accept the motion by Councilor Mercier as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries as amended. Move on to the next motion of the evening. That is, we did 8.4. We'll move on to 8.5. Motion by Councilor Samaras, request city manager provide an update regarding lighting in the downtown. Second by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. To the city manager, Mr. Murphy, I do know that you've done a lot to change the lighting in the downtown, but still, when I'm in the downtown area, there's still a number of people who live in the area who talk about want to see either more lighting or what has actually transpired. So if we could get an update on what has happened and what you anticipate doing by, we'll say, the Christmas time or something to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next motion of the evening, again by Councilor Samaras. Request city manager request superintendent of the Lowell Police Department evaluate the worth of expanding the use of security cameras in the downtown and neighborhood business district. Seconded by, Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Mr. Manager, I do know that we have some TV cameras in the downtown area. Some of the businesses, such as Enterprise Bank, have their cameras. I know the high school has their cameras. But I'd like to have you, with the superintendent, look at putting more cameras in the downtown area, but also including now Couple Square, Bridge Street, Lower Belvedere, Pawtuckaville, those areas of businesses. I bring this up because this council has made the right moves in hiring a number of policemen. And we've done the right thing, but we can't cover every inch of the city. And I do know, when you look at things like Boston, that terrible tragedy that happened at the Boston Marathon, I believe because of the TV cameras, that case was solved. If they didn't have the cameras in those areas, it might have gone unsolved at this particular time. And I also know as headmaster of the high school, once we had TV cameras in the school, it changed the atmosphere of the school. It made it a safer place because everybody knew that they were, we'll say, on camera, and it just helped us supervise the school in a more positive way. So I'm just asking that this be considered. I think it's the right direction to go. I think the costs are such that it's doable. The question is, how much do we want to do? I just think that we've talked to our citizens about making this a safer place, and I really do think that this will help continue the direction we've been going in. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion is accepted, adopted. Next motion of the evening by Councilor Samaras. Request City Manager provide an update on the status of Merrimack, Moody, Market, and Salem Street neighborhood in regards to improvement efforts or plans to be made in accordance with your previous motion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Second by Councilor Marcia. And your previous motion, Councilor?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. No, the thing is, when I made that motion, I did talk about Route 38 as an example, that we had a lot of issues as a council dealing with some of the concerns that the businesses, neighbors had. And I really felt that this motion to have the Department of Planning and Development look into this issue to assure the neighbors that live there, or the people that live in the area, the small business people, along with the larger companies, work together to better understand what the needs are. I recently found out, though, after making this motion, that Jean D'Arc will be hosting a meeting, I believe, tomorrow, sponsored by the Federal Reserve, the Working Cities meeting. And I do know, I've worked with that particularly, I have attended Working City meetings in the past, and I want to compliment Jean D'Arc and the city for doing this, because when you have a meeting like that, under the Federal Reserve guidelines, they do include the people that live there, the businesses, and they make dialogue happen in a positive way. So I think I'd like to get that, the results of that meeting and other meetings that take place, but just to keep this council informed as to the direction this area is going, because I think it's an important spoke in the city. I mean, I look at couple squares, one spoke, Bridge Street, another spoke, and this is another spoke in the wheel, and our center city is the hub. So thank you.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion on this motion as well? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion is accepted. Next motion of the evening is by Councilor Leahy and myself. Request City Manager at Proper Department explore the possibility of redesigning the intersection of Moore and Gorham Street. No second necessary. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Manager, if we could have someone take a look at this intersection, the business owners in the area would appreciate it. After speaking with a few of them, we have some businesses on that corridor of Gorham Street that are looking for a little assistance, I guess. If we could have a study done, I don't know if the existing lights would work or not, but just changing the sequence of the lights, maybe traffic pattern, trying to get traffic to and from these businesses, especially trying to get up, I think it's Girt Street. We have businesses up there just after the bridge, just before the bridge. So we have some young businesses there that they're doing quite well. We have some other businesses that have been there for quite some time, and they're willing to do more improvements if they can get the assistance of the city to help with that intersection to get the business in and out. And then, of course, we have that new development going up the street across from the firehouse. So anything we could do to help assist would be appreciated. Thank you.
If there's no objection, I'd just like to add a couple of comments from the podium. Mr. Manager, I mean, the good news is that this is another small little business district that has become revitalized, and there's a lot of, which increases traffic. I think the intersection could be reconfigured or certainly striped a little bit better. I know there's a lot of infrastructure improvements that are going on there, but I think it's worthy to take a look at, try to reconfiguring, at least maybe timing of the signals to facilitate some traffic in that neighborhood. So the good news is that there's a lot more businesses there that are vibrant, but it comes with a price, and that's the traffic. On the motion, Councilman Rourke? No?
Your Honor, just one thing. I think it's Dick Street. I made a mistake with
Yeah,
the street, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Councilor Rourke, Councilor Mercia, and then I have an announcement too.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just curiosity, we got the beacon tonight on our desk when we came in, and it did say that Governor Baker has added an extra $25 million for cities and towns to help pay for snow removal. And I hate to see Mr. Healy here on there for nothing. So is there anything we can do to get some of that money?
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, it's a request for a supplemental budget. It hasn't passed yet, but we're keeping tabs on it because that would come into great use for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Interim Auditor? Anything else to add on that?
No, I think the city manager is much closer to the status of that circumstance than I.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Local people are involved with a fundraiser for Easter Seals. Easter Seals helps children with autism, medical rehabilitation, employment and training as they get older, and assistive technology. So they're going to have an event on Thursday, September 17th from 6 to 10 at Cavaliero's. Tickets can be bought at the door. So I just wanted to be informative about that. So anybody that would love to go would help out a great cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything further? I was asked today to mention Art Up is a program that has been sponsored by local artists and being led by Michael Gallagher, where Lowell Community Health Center numbers attended the event, and it was very successful. We had over 500 artists contribute art, and many of it has been purchased, and it's hanging at Lowell Community Health Center. So this Thursday, NECN has been doing a story on it. So this Thursday, it will air at 9 p.m. So in between the Patriots, this will be at halftime. In between the Patriots game, we'll go and flip over to NECN, but they wanted me to mention that there's a nice story being done by NECN and all the art and all the positive aspects that have taken place, so I thought I'd bring it forward. So with that, that concludes the business before the City Council this evening. Entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and those opposed, that motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned.